During the design stage, ISO 27001 will bring in security and privacy by design. What do you mean by privacy by design? We talk about the shift left, right in the beginning. Bring in the privacy aspect, the security aspect, right, when the DevSecOps cycle starts, right in the beginning. Access control and data classification also has to be focused upon. And while ISO 42001 focuses on data governance and documenting model design and assumptions, so both these things go hand in hand. So you can't have 42001 existing without 27001. In the build and test stage, ISO 27001 emphasizes secure development and environment segregation. And ISO 42001 expects training records, test evidence, and checks for bias, robustness, and reliability. So you'll realize that both the ISO, both the standards are going hand in hand. At the deploy stage, ISO 27001 requires formal change management, approvals, and a go live criteria. ISO 42001 adds deployment conditions and guardrails, such as where the AI is allowed to be used and the level of human oversight required, right? Human in the loop, on the loop, or out of the loop? That's a big question, right? We all try to answer every day today. During operate stage, ISO 27001 drives logging, monitoring, and incident response, while ISO 42001 extend this to AI specific monitoring, model performance, drift, and harmful or unexpected outputs. The operate stage is very important. And honestly, you'll only reach the operate stage correctly if you have done your previous stages properly. Finally, in review and improve, ISO 27001, 9001, and 42001 converge in internal audits, non-conformities, corrective actions, and management review. If you design your processes and templates around this combined view, people simply follow the life cycle and the governance is built in by design. So, I mean, this, is, I hope it's a very important concept, and, I would really request all of you to take this with you. Now, when a new standard appears, the instinct is to assume we must create a whole new parallel structure. So, this is something really, when a new standard comes in, from where do you start? Do you reinvent the wheel again? Do you start from zero again? No, definitely not. And at least, if you've got the drift of my conversation till now, I have been taking both the standards hand in hand till now. So if you already have, say, the quality standard, you've got ISO 9001, you have a strong quality backbone, clear process ownership, customer and stakeholder focus, non-conformities and corrective action, and management review. The ISO 23894 provides the mental model for AI risk, how to identify, assess, and treat risks such as bias, harmful output, lack of robustness, or misuse. The key is to avoid creating a separate AI paper factory. Instead, keep one set of governance forums, one non-conformity and corrective action process, and let AI risk assessments and quality practices feed into your combined ISO 42001 and ISO 27001 management system. They go hand in hand. Sorry. This keeps the governance lean while still addressing new AI specific risks in a disciplined way. So, in my last slide, if you understood, what I'm trying to maybe talk to you about is integrated governance. But then the million-dollar question is, who owns what? Standards require us to define roles and responsibilities, but they leave the design of governance to us. This may vary a bit from organization to organization. A practical pattern many organizations adopt is a simple RACI. Yeah, we've heard of the RACI matrix across key activities and roles. CIO or IT leads, the CISO and security, data or AI leadership, risk and compliance, and the business owners. For example, uh, business owners should be accountable for approving new AI or IT use cases because they own the outcome, right? They are the business owners. Data and AI leads are typically responsible for the technical design. IT and security are consulted to ensure viability and controls. And of course, the risk and compliance team, will provide the oversight. For risk assessments, security and data AI leads often perform the detailed work. Risk and compliance ensure consistency, and business is consulted on impact. So, for incidents and non-conformities, cybersecurity may own technical response, while risk and compliance own the process of documenting non-conformities and driving corrective actions. The exact, the RACI matrix table can actually vary, but the principle is to have one integrated governance model covering AI, security, quality, and continuity. By continuity, I mean business continuity, rather than each area inventing its own silos of responsibility. The way these standards have been created, uh, a lot of thought goes behind creating a new standard, whether it's an AI standard, is an information security management standard, or it's a data privacy standard. And you have to look at what already, in terms of clauses have been given in previous standards, because everything is linked to each other. So let me walk you through a case study because, like I told you, I wanted to keep this talk very, very practical. Consider a simple but common scenario. I'm sure all of us are seeing some kind of a AI powered support assistant for internal IT help or external customer support. Everyone is using smart, these AI bots, right? You call it AI bot, you call it AI agent, right? Automation leading to agentic AI. So let's have a look at the scenario. So AI powered support assistant, the assistant answers questions, suggests solutions, and may trigger actions powered by a large language model or similar AI. What are the key risks? The key risks include hallucination or incorrect advice, data leakage if prompts or outputs expose sensitive information, biases or inappropriate responses, and reliability issues if the assistant becomes critical to service. Because if you try the assistant for some time and then you actually make it becomes a part very critical to a service, the thing which I spelled out become even more critical. Now at the idea stage, ISO 42001 and say ISO 23894 guide us to treat this as at least a medium risk AI use case and perform an initial risk screening. So you're creating the bot, but these two standards require us to actually undertake a screening and identify the risk. And maybe possibly based on that, we have come with a medium risk AI use case. Now in design, ISO 27001 ensures secure integration, access controls, and logging. And ISO 42001 ensures we define the intended use limits and the human oversight. When we move to the design, during we move from now design, we move to the build and test. We will check for hallucinations, harmful outputs, and prompt injections, right? You all would be aware there's a full new OWASP top 10 now for AI vulnerabilities, and we document training, configuration, and test results. These are actually now the requirements for a new AI management system. When we move to operation, ISO 27001 requires logging, monitoring, and incident response. Along with this, ISO 42001 extends this to monitoring AI specific behavior such as drift or unexpected output patterns. Yes, there is technology available, especially from where I come from. You know, uh, we've got technology like AI defense. We have got solutions to actually take care of your AI workload. How do you make sure the right model is being used? Is this model a right fit for the particular use case that you have? How would you figure out that possibly the model is hallucinating? How do you make sure that prompt injection does not happen? How do you make sure that the testing data, the training data is not poisoned? Because then the model gets trained in a malicious way. So when issues occur, we raise non-conformities, perform root cause analysis, and implement corrective actions that improve both the AI model and the underlying processes and controls. This is what moving from policy to practice looks like in a concrete everyday AI scenario. See, I've taken a very basic example, but if you if you look at my case study, you will realize this case study is actually relevant for any AI use case, which any organization may like to deploy. So it's important to measure what matters, because how will you come to know that if you have actually created a AI system, you've created a technology which is being driven by AI, is it really working or not? So to steer any management system, we need metrics, but they must be meaningful and they should be manageable. So you can think of metrics, in three buckets. First bucket is the security and the AI risk. Uh, for example, the percentage of high risk AI use cases with completed risk assessment, control coverage for critical AI and IT services, and the number of AI related security or privacy incidents. Because when you create the model, this percentage would become important. I give you the bot example. Now, if that bot has a very high, say the percentage is high for maybe for the it's been deployed in a critical scenario, and while it may have shown some hallucination, but because it has gone into a critical environment, the weightage of that risk becomes higher. Because when we are doing when we what is risk? So your risk is is basically is you consider the threat, you consider the vulnerability, you consider the impact. So the threat into vulnerability into impact. So depending upon where you deploy the AI model, or the AI assistant, depending upon the scenario, the level of risk will change. And then you would have to figure out where does it come in your matrix. If it's in red, how do you get it to amber? If it's in amber, how do you get it to green? Second, moving forward, let's talk about operations and resilience. So yeah, here the metric would be service uptime for key AI enabled services, mean time to resolve incidents, and counts of severe model failures or harmful outputs. Because when you get into operations and resilience, the AI service, if it is getting into a critical domain, service uptime becomes very important. Because today applications are running, and if AI becomes a critical component, a enabler of this application, everybody talks in terms of SLAs. We've got service level agreements. So there is a commitment which has to be given. In case a glitch does come in, what is the time to resolve the incident? And if case the model is failing, or worse, in case it is giving a harmful output, it would directly impact your operations and your business resilience. And of course, the third bucket, uh, I would like to dwell upon is governance and improvement. So see, honestly, no process or no product is perfect. You come out with a beta version, right? You take out a version, and every time you keep getting upgrades. Is upgrade always a case of better functionality or some improvement? No. Many a times the upgrades come out because there is a glitch, there is a bug which has been detected, and now is the time to correct it. You will never be in a scenario wherein you'll have the perfect application or the perfect solution platform. Because go to market is important for companies, right? You need to have the competitive edge. You can't keep perfecting a product. So going by that, so non-conformities raised versus closed within target time. That is what becomes important. Uh, Reoccurrence by root cause. Now this is important because root cause analysis are important. Only then actually can you see improvement. And the proportion of staff trained on AI and security governance becomes extremely important, because how much ever we think of relying on AI, we always have to think about what the repercussion can be when an automated process or a so-called AI bot or AI assistant, for whatever reason, if it goes rogue, and if it is deployed in a very critical process, or I would say in a critical system, what can be the impact. So see, another thing, of course, what I would like to bring out is that, see, the board. When I say the board, I mean, the board of directors. We're talking about a company. And senior leaders, they do not want 50 metrics. No, that is not the idea. They want a concise set that shows whether risk is understood, right? It's important to understand, because if you don't understand the risk, I told you, risk is threat into vulnerability into impact. Your operations are stable, and governance is driving improvement. So actually, if you see, I mean, these are, I would say, the big metrics. As I said, security and AI risk, I said, is the risk understood, right? And operations, we spoke about operation resilience. If the operation is stable, yes, I mean, that's what the board or the senior leaders want. And the governance process, see, I don't know if you've heard of Kaizen, 5S, right? We talk about continual improvement. So governance has to keep driving improvement. Now, trend lines over time and closed loop correction are more important than perfect numbers on day one. I hope you understood what I said. This is important. Uh, Perfect numbers on day one. Honestly, if you're getting perfect numbers on day one, I think something is wrong. Especially with AI, the way we train models, we are aware of the fact that for the same query, for the same input, same data sets, two models can give you varying answers. And that is, I would say, a major concern about generative AI. So then, if every time our prediction is going to be slightly different, then we have to have trend lines over time, and we need to have closed loop correction to make sure that the model is trained on the right data without bias. So as I had told you initially when we started, that let's try to make a a 90-day program, because I told you from policy to practice. You'll hear a lot on policy, but the larger challenge is it's important to understand that how will any of these ISO standards that we're talking about, how will it actually get implemented? So I want to leave you with a practical 90-day roadmap. Say, in day 0 to 30, focus on understanding and mobilizing. What do I mean by that? You build a simple inventory of AI use cases and your critical IT services. So, interestingly, for any two organizations, the use cases could be very different. While you may end up using the same models, but the workflow, and I call them the wire diagrams. When you actually get on the drawing board and you try to make the wire diagrams, the process flows for an organization, you will realize that as humans, there are many processes by virtue of our, I would say, our strong cognitive power. We manage to do things which actually, when you need AI to implement that, would really require a lot of documentation in terms of what exactly the workflow would be, so that if the human is in the loop, or on the loop or out of the loop, the process should function properly. And if we are looking at the human going on the loop or out of the loop, that means it has to be a very robust workflow. So when you build your inventory of AI use cases and critical ID services, map what you already have from ISO 27001, and I would say your ISO 9001, because I think a quality standard is a benchmark. I mean, every company is supposed to have, right, the quality standard. Now, look at your risk registers, look at your change management. What do the committees say? The non-conformance processes, because you already have a framework in place. And like I said, we are not going to reinvent the wheel. We don't work in silos. Everything has to work together. That means all these documents actually need to get updated. So maybe you'll have a new version of the risk register, right? More stakeholders possibly will get added. There would be a change. There would be a shift in how you evaluate your risk. So your heat matrix, the red, green, amber matrix, the weightages will change. Uh, the committee may need more specialists. You may need more people who actually understand AI, and the non-conformity processes also would have to be looked at. Also, in the first, I would say these 30 days, form a small AI and risk governance working group, bringing together your IT, your cybersecurity, your data or AI, and the risk. So the GRC, right? IT has a specific role. So does the cybersecurity team, the data or AI team, and the risk, risk assessment team. Uh, Stage two, say in days 31 to 60, move to design and pilot. Agree on a simple life cycle and decide the minimum artifacts you expect at each stage. What artifacts? Like, the risk assessment that you undertake, the design notes that you create, the test summaries, and the go life checklist. I mean, these are important artifacts. There will also be a need to update existing risk templates to include your AI considerations, right? Using ISO 23894 as a inspiration. Now, why have I why I'm talking about ISO 23894 is because you cannot look at 42001 in isolation. Uh, s- Select one or two, I would say, pilot use cases. See, this would actually depend upon the capacity of your company. And in all fairness, I mean, what is your AI enablement roadmap in your organization? And continuously apply a combination of ISO 42001 and ISO 27001 approach to them. We discussed this initially, right? I told you the 42001 and 27001 go hand in hand. If we achieve this, we go on to the third stage, which maybe is your day from 61 to 90. So in the third phase, embed, you embed and communicate, establish a regular management review touch point where you present early metrics, risks, and lessons. Define 5 to 7 core KPIs, or you know uh, key performance indicators, or KRS, key result indicators, that you will track. Uh, Run targeted awareness for architects, developers, operations, and data scientists, so they understand what is expected of them. See, AI is something new, and I know we all live in a world today which generally talks about instant gratification. But while you want the AI to respond to you in seconds, but the implementation roadmap, yes, I mean, I must give this disclaimer right now. It is laborious. It is time taking, because the devil lies in the planning, the right implementation, and yes, then you would have the AI actually working, functioning the way you actually want it to function in your organization. So you will not have a perfect 42001 implementation at the end of 90 days, trust me. But you will have shifted your organization from policy to practice and build a foundation that can scale. As they say, the foundation is very important. And most of these frameworks, that is what they're trying to do for your organization, give you the right foundation. At this stage, when I normally have this conversation with many organizations, and I've engaged, with some, I would say, even with boards of companies. The question I ask them is that, does your company have a AI policy? Simple question. Does your company have a AI policy? And I have had many blank looks, and the board, which includes maybe the CIO, the CTO, the CISO, looking at each other, that what exactly is the AI policy? So, and that's where we are right now in many organizations. So possibly, when this 90-day roadmap is actually worked upon, it would also actually help us figure out what should be the AI policy. We are almost coming to an end now. So my talk today has been moving from policy actually to practical implementation, and from compliance to confidence, right? Finally, why are we looking at these frameworks? Because it is it is understood that when I get compliant, when I remove my non-conformities, when I comply, these frameworks actually give me more confidence. So to close, I would say three simple thoughts. First, use ISO 42001 and ISO 27001 as frameworks to organize your governance, not as checklist burdens. And trust me, if you are practicing, if you are an auditor yourself, or you are in the process of undergoing an audit, you will understand what is the checklist burden that I'm talking about. If they live only in binders or portals, you miss their real value. And this is actually a word of caution also, because God forbid if you have a breach, God forbid your AI model runs rogue. and it has a major impact on your organization. That is when a lot of documentation would open, and obviously it would be checked. Was it just a checklist? You did a ticking off, but did you actually practically make sure that these things actually got implemented in your system? Second, always anchor governance in your IT and AI lifecycle. What does that mean? Ask where each requirement lives. You remember we discussed the idea initially, the design, build, deploy, operate, review. Plan, do, check, act. Plan, do, check, act. Plan, do, check, act. DevOps now, DevSecOps, DevSecOps, infinity loop. It goes on and on and on. That keeps your program connected to reality. Third, reuse strengths you already have in ISO 27001, ISO 9001, and ISO 23894 to build one integrated management system. Different ISO standard does not mean different management systems. You need an integrated management system, which I've been harping upon, right? Since the beginning of my talk. Make your incidents and non-conformities your best teachers rather than something to hide from audits. It's a very typical thing which we do. I am partner to crime, maybe myself at some point of time. You find an incident, non-conformity. The easiest thing, the first thing with thought which will come into your mind, how can I push it under the carpet? Please don't do that. Now is the time to make sure this incident and non-conformity, it teaches you and you figure out how. So if there's a risk, right? Either you eliminate the risk. If you can't eliminate the risk, you transfer the risk or you reduce the risk, right? I mean there are various things which the ways or you accept the risk depending upon your risk appetite. I would say depending upon your, I would say, your risk threshold. So if we do this well, we do more than pass audits, right? Is our GRC audits only about passing audits? No, definitely not. Idea is to build trustworthy, resilient digital services for citizens, for customers, and our own team. And with that, I have come to the end of my talk. Thank you for your time. I hope these 40 odd minutes I spoke, they made sense. I would be happy to take your questions and hear how you are approaching this in your organizations. Thank you so much. Gauri, I have finished.
Of course, sir. Thank you so much for this very, very insightful session and the examples that you have used. I'm sure people are looking forward to ask you few questions, and I'm going to read them out loud now. Okay, so now the platform has officially opened for the question and answer. So if any one of you have any questions, this is your chance to connect with Mr. Aditya Verma directly in the chat box, and you can go ahead and ask your questions.
So, Gauri, do I need to have a look at the?
What is it?
No, I do I need to look at the meeting chat, or you'll read out the questions to me?
No, I will be reading out like once I get the question. So yes. Um the use case
Okay,
so there is one
yeah.
question. The use case life cycle is very logical. Where do local and international regulations fall in the cycle?
So, thanks. So this question I think is from Fatima. A very relevant question. Thank you so much, Faris. Now, use case life cycle very logical. Yes, where do local and international regulations fall in the cycle? See, like I said initially, I'm putting a I told you about putting a standard on top of the life cycle. The life cycle doesn't change. Now, imagine a scenario wherein you are developing an application, AI, AI based application, which is actually required to operate globally. That application needs to be accessed in India. It also needs to be accessed in Europe. It also needs to be maybe accessed in the Americas. I mean, classic case, I mean, the company which I come from. I mean, we are operating in the Americas. We are operating in APJC. We are operating in EMEA. So you have to make sure that while you pick up a framework, you need to map frameworks. You may pick up a NIST framework, right? NIST, America, US. You pick up an ISO framework. Maybe we're doing something in India. Let me introduce another ISO 27701. Your DPDP has just come here. So we've got GDPR, we've got DPDP, US has got HIPAA. But in case you're building an application which requires a compliance for all these frameworks, and in case you have a scenario wherein the transactions or the processing demands data actually going beyond borders, you would have to make sure that you integrate frameworks. So that's why we always operate with the framework mapping. The framework mapping essentially would mean, let's take ISO 27001. 27001, the clauses, the controls would in a way map to the equivalent NIST framework. I mean, devil lies in the details, but yeah, that's what you would have to figure out. And then you would you put this on top of the life cycle. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I hope that answered your question too, Faris. And yes, thank you so much, sir, for this answer. And there is actually few more questions from the live stream as well, which I would like to tell. And meanwhile, if anyone is having more questions, they can feel free to drop them right in the chat box. Yes. So, how do these standards change the way IT and security team works on daily basis? Is a question being asked by Rohan.
Ron, see from where I come from, it used to, and operations are chaotic, right? And from where I come from, every day used to be a new day, a different day with new challenges, new happenings. See, frameworks help you, help, they give you guidance. And many a times, when you find that a new situation has cropped up, as they say, we in the defense, we say you get back to the books, you get back to your training, you get back to standards, you get back to checklists. Check-off list. It's about doing the check-off list. The check-off list needs to be done initially when you're preparing. The check-off list also needs to be done when there is a sudden escalation, or you move to a different level of activity or incident happening. So possibly, that is where. So, and in the time of crisis, whatever planning, whatever you may have done, finally, it is the frameworks which will save you. And that's the reason why I said, while you have a life cycle, but on top of the life cycle, we would put frameworks. It has to make you more resilient. Finally, all the frameworks that we have spoken about, it is about getting it's about getting business resilience, digital resilience, cyber resilience, whatever you call it.
Thank you so much, sir. I hope that answered Rohan's question. There is one more from the live stream which says, what common mistakes should organizations avoid during implementation?
What common mistakes? I'll tell you the most common mistake. The most common mistake is that while this is a framework, the framework, the framework, it's a framework. You It doesn't mean that you have to see how does the framework apply to your organization. Meaning to say, if you are an organization which is, say, a government organization which is on premise, you are a data center, your resources, they are air gapped. The relevance of, say, the ISO 27000 or the 42001 for you standards will be different in case an organization is on the cloud or is hybrid or is multi-cloud, because the risk assessment will vary for both organizations. And that is when, because when you do your risk assessment, when you do the threat into vulnerability into impact, it's going to be different for both the organizations. So see, there's a policies coming out of the standard, but finally you need to make a practical checklist, because there are teams on ground which have to implement it, right? I hope that answers.
Sure. If any one of you have any more questions, then feel free to drop them in the chat box. We still have a couple of minutes before we wrap up this session, so it could be your chance to get your questions directly answered by Mr. Aditya. I guess there is one more question from the live which I'll be taking in that case, and then yeah, that will be the last question for today. If nothing comes in the chat box, it says, "How do these standards change the way IT and security teams work on a daily basis?" If you have any personal opinion on it or like a personal experience on it.
Yes, most certainly. See, let me, okay, now let me get a maybe a little deeper. I'll give you two examples. 27001, let me talk about a specific thing now. 20 so 20, your 27001, it actually requires compliance from the entire organization. There are organizational controls, right? You've got organizational controls, you've got people controls, you've got technical controls, right? So what are organizational controls? What is the organization? The CISO reports to whom, right? Does the board figure in decisions for cybersecurity, for example? The people's control is all HR related, all policies. Now, who would imagine that policies, SOPs, everything comes under your people control? But if there is a proper onboarding and exit process which has to be followed for individuals, I mean, it has to be done, right? And physical controls, right? Physical control, access, biometrics, CCTV cameras. I mean, it's a full framework. And technical controls, which essentially translate into cybersecurity controls, which have to be put, and which incidentally are now also being pushed by many government watchdog organizations. So see, you need a framework, because if an organization is working, you may have some good best practices, but see, it always makes sense if you adopt any framework. Because I have also been asked this question, that should I go for a NIST framework or should I go for ISO framework? What I say is, you pick up any framework, because finally, if you look at these frameworks, you'll find both the frameworks are talking the same language. Or for that matter, if you look at data protection, if you pick up, we have the DPDP Act, we've got the DPDP rules which have come recently. You compare it to GDPR, or you compare to, maybe when we talk about health data, you look at HIPAA. Finally, what are people talking about? They're talking about rights of citizens, of people, for privacy, for the data. It is about following a framework, like I said. And it so so when, again, let's see, we are talking about risk management. So risk, when it is threat into vulnerability into impact, you reduce your threat, because see, your threat, vulnerability, impact can vary. But when you put a framework on it, you definitely end up, I would say, reducing the amount of risk which the organization would have.
Absolutely, that 100% answered the question from Nicholas. And yes, like I guess like the today's session was all about understanding how important the framework is. Otherwise, there's no direction to whatever that you follow in day-to-day life in an
Absolutely.
organization. And yes, with that, we are coming to today's session's end. And thank you so much, everyone who was a part of today's session. We have gained some amazing insights from Mr. Aditya, and it's been truly inspiring. And now, before we wrap up, we would love to hear your final thoughts, any closing message that you would like to leave with us today for today's session.
Gauri, first of all, thank you so much. Like I said, I mean, I said in the beginning also, views are totally mine. But I think, this is just a word out to all the practitioners out there, people working in the field of cybersecurity, in the field of governance, risk, and compliance. We are in a